one of the issues that I keep following is the repercussions of all of this, what happened basically since 2014, since the war started, since the occupation and then annexation of Crimea started as the beginning of this Russian assault on Ukraine, is the repercussions that this has for the logic of nuclear non-proliferation, because we have this odd non-proliferation regime established by the NPT, by the Non-Proliferation Treaty, that 5 countries in the world have under this treaty the permission to have nuclear weapons, and the other of the 191 countries that have signed this treaty do not have permission to build and to purchase nuclear weapons. And so what we had in 2024 is that we had the first of all, we had this odd situation that a country that is permitted to have nuclear weapons attacks a country that is forbidden to have nuclear weapons by the NPT, and that the NPT then does not foresee any solution to this contradiction, that the non-proliferation regime in fact enables and furthers a territorial expansion of an official nuclear weapon state at the expense of an official non-nuclear weapon state. So that was already a very absurd situation, also especially absurd against the background that Ukraine once had nuclear weapons. It inherited atomic arms from the Soviet Union, gave it away. It got then this Budapest Memorandum signed by the 3 depository states of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the US, Great Britain and Russia. And nevertheless, this Budapest Memorandum, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, did not protect Ukraine, and also basically it had very little consequences for Ukraine and for the help of countries that have also signed this treaty for Ukraine, because many countries simply have not helped Ukraine, and some even are taking a position against Ukraine, although they should be very worried about the situation that they, as non-nuclear weapon states, are signatories of this treaty, and they could potentially have the same fate. What has then happened in 2023 and especially 2024, that another nuclear weapon state, North Korea, has entered the war in 2023 with delivering large amounts of ammunition and weaponry to Russia, thereby supporting Russia's war against Ukraine. And then in 2024, North Korea entered actually with troops deployed to the front line this war, and we have now 2 nuclear weapon states fighting a war against a non-nuclear weapon state. One signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, Russia, and North Korea as a country that has left the non-proliferation regime in 2003. And still, the NPT forbids Ukraine to have nuclear weapons, although it's now fighting a war against 2 nuclear weapon states. And now we have in 2025 an even more scandalous situation, in that the United States, also as an official nuclear weapon state under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, is now supporting the Russian narrative of the war, is blaming Ukraine to have started the war. I mean, not the United States as a whole, but the president, and as the representative of the United States, is doing so. And basically the United States is now, at least the Trump administration, is trying to force Ukraine to give away territory to a nuclear weapon state. And it's sort of, in spite of these security guarantees it gave Ukraine, or security assurances it gave Ukraine in 1994, it is now becoming almost an ally of Russia in the annexation of these territories from Ukraine. So this is now a totally absurd situation in which if you don't have nuclear weapons, you will be punished by the nuclear weapon state, surprise, surprise, yeah, who have the power to punish you and who will do so because they are in a different security situation because they have nuclear weapons. And the implications of all of this is that countries that don't have weapons of mass destruction are at a disadvantage. And I'm afraid the future then will be that countries that have so far refrained from purchasing weapons of mass destruction, whether nuclear, chemical, or biological, will simply conclude that they should get them because they don't want to have, don't want to be in the shoes of Ukraine, and maybe they want to be as smart as Russia, because if they then have weapons of mass destruction, they can perhaps also, like Russia, get some territories from their neighbors. So I think if that continues, this will be the end, I think, of the non-proliferation regime for nuclear weapons and perhaps also of the conventions on biological and chemical weapons, because countries will simply reassess their own national security. And the major threat here may actually come, as odd as it sounds, from the weaker countries, the countries that are threatened by expansion, by irredentist tendencies in neighboring countries, because they will have a very strong case for purchasing or building nuclear weapons or chemical weapons or biological weapons, because they will do it for their own security. You know, it's not actually a bad cause they will need then these weapons for. And somehow people don't see that, and they don't understand what larger implications Ukraine's fate has for the future of humanity as a whole. And instead, we have a large community of politicians and intellectuals that dream about a non-nuclear world and stuff like that. But the real tendencies in the real world go in the exact opposite direction, and they will, I think, drive countries not to refrain from getting nuclear weapons or other weapons of mass destruction, but on the contrary, countries will be motivated to get them because they don't want to be in the situation of Ukraine, this totally absurd situation in which Ukraine, as a non-nuclear weapon state, which has given away nuclear weapons, which has signed the non-proliferation treaty, which is behaving well under the non-proliferation regime, and is now punished for being a disciplined observer of the a disciplined member of the non-proliferation regime.